Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Welcome to a special Thanksgiving episode of the show. Tonight we're going to talk about Survivor Series versus Starrcade 1988. Now, this is the follow-up show from last year when we talked about Survivor Series versus Starrcade 1987. WWF started to dip into the November pay-per-view market, and they decided to have a new traditional show, which they wanted to, make known to the wrestling fan as the Thanksgiving tradition, the Thanksgiving show, and this put the NWA in kind of a pickle because Vince McMahon wanted to dominate the pay-per-view market. He wanted to take over this, portion of the pay-per-view scene that the NWA previously was doing pretty well with because there was really no competition. But also on this show, I'm going to talk about how the AWA played a factor as well. It may be minute in a way because the AWA at the time was starting to lose momentum, to say the least, and they were pretty much on the way out. Because this was late 1988, but they still played a factor as well. So we're looking at Survivor Series 1988 versus Starrcade 88. Now, I understand that Survivor Series really isn't the main show compared to Starrcade because Starrcade was the main show. We could do a Starrcade versus WrestleMania show as well, just to, kind of break the monotony of this, I guess you could say, which I think we'll do further down the line. But I just wanted to do a follow-up show because last year was a lot of fun to talk about this. This year, as we look at these pay-per-views, with WWF deciding to have a November show, this let the NWA, I guess, draw to a conclusion that, it's a better idea if we... It's not that like they backed down, but they just decided to go with the December date instead of the November one. And it makes sense, might as well just get away from that. So basically here, in November, WWF had Survivor Series 1988. Now I can review it, which will be fun. I like this one. This is probably one of my most favorite Survivor Series of all time. It's definitely like my top 3. Basically, the card ran like this. I'm going to go through everybody. First match was the Ultimate Warrior, Brutus Beefcake, Sam Houston, Blue Blazer, Jim Brunzell, who was basically replacing Don Morocco, who got released in October that year for other reasons on a tour, defeated the Honky Tonk Man, Ron Bass, Danny Davis, Greg Valentine, and Bad News Brown with Jimmy Hart. Now, this is a time period of the WWF where the characters were just out of this world, some of them. It was just wild. You had Bad News Brown, who really wasn't a fan favorite at all, but he did this thing at Survivor Series, which kind of became a tradition where he'd just walk out on his team. He said, I'm done. After some kind of incident or whatever, talk about being a little bit petty there, jeez. But he just walked away during the match, which was fun to watch. I've noticed with some of these Survivor Series, everybody kind of teams up together more than once. Like with Honky Tonk Man and Danny Davis, this is their second pairing, and I think Ron Bass too was on the previous team before that in '87. If I could rate this match out of 10, I give it a 7. It wasn't the longest match on the card. It wasn't a bad match. It was a little quicker than all 3 of the other matches, but I enjoyed it. I thought it made sense because you had at the time, with pretty much all these matches, people that were the co-captains and the captains feuding, good guys and bad guys wise. So, the Ward and Beefcake, Ward was feuding with Honky Tonk Man, Beefcake was feuding with Ron Bass. Made sense. This was the debut of the Blue Blazer on pay-per-view, which I thought he did pretty good. He was a good wrestler. Owen Hart was awesome. To see him in this match was kind of unique. Jim Brunzell was a little bit out of place. It would make more sense if him and Brian Blair would have been a tag team as the Killer Bees and just got rid of Sam Houston on this team. I think that would have been cool. But at the time, I'm pretty sure Brian Blair was gone. They broke up, so it was kind of just Jim Brunzell filling in. And he was fun to watch. He was all right. That's pretty much all I have to really say about the match. It was definitely cool to see the Warrior be like the sole survivor. This is just on his upswing as Intercontinental Champion. The next match I really liked. This was when the tag team, I guess you could say the division this was almost as good as it can get in a way. They had a lot of great talent. They had, at the time, I didn't actually notice, the Powers of Pain were faces when they first debuted. They teamed up with the Rockers, the British Bulldogs, the Hart Foundation, and the Young Stallions, which I thought weren't used right to begin with, but that's another story. They defeated Demolition, the Brainbusters, the Bolsheviks, Fabulous Rougeaus, and the Conquistadors. Now, I think top to bottom, the face team is stacked. top to bottom, the heel team not so much, but this was an excellent match. I mean, the way, and this goes back to almost the quality of the Survivor Series. Today, you're not going to see a match that's 42 minutes long. Very rarely will you see that on like a pay-per-view, except besides Mania maybe. This was just awesome. I mean, some people could say, it's chain wrestling, it's boring. No, this was a good match. And the cool part about the match was everyone had their own style, everyone had their own identity, which I think in today's wrestling sometimes goes by the wayside. And you can see the personalities all kind of clashing during this match. It was just awesome. The Powers of Pain, geez, were they in their prime? Some of the moves the Barbarian was doing, I've never seen him do before, like some high spin kicks and things like that against Smash. It was pretty cool. If I could rate this match, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. It was just good. Now, some of the heels weren't, the best. The Conquistadors, But it was funny because Jesse Ventura, in his heel fashion, was kind of joking about the Conquistadors being there till the end, which you wouldn't guess. You figured they get, a quick send-off, in like 10 minutes. But they were there for the whole match, which was kind of funny because they were just getting their asses kicked throughout most of it. Anytime, like, the Warlord or one of those guys would step in, they'd just be in trouble. Just a good match. It was cool because it was the heel turn for the Powers of Pain. It was the face turn for Demolition, which I don't know if that was necessary, really. I wouldn't have turned Demolition. I think Powers of Pain, they were cool as faces. I think when you did the opposite, I don't think the Powers of Pain were as good heels as they could have been. I think they were better baby faces, and I think Demolition is better as a heel tag team. Just my opinion. And Mr. Fuji, he kind of screwed up the spot a little bit. When I'm watching the ending, he was just standing on the apron. Didn't need to do that for like 2 minutes, and then he did the old, stuck the cane out. A funny thing, though, you could see a lot of the feuds that were going on. Powers of Pain, Demolition, the Rockers, the Brainbusters, the Rougeos, and the Bulldogs, of course. They didn't like each other in real life, too. So it's cool to see these pairings. It was kind of neat to see the Rockers, too, in the early stages of WWE. And it feels like, just from my opinion, they kind of replaced the Young Stallions in a way, because they were like, the up-and-coming tag team in 87, and then they kind of just, fell by the wayside by late 88 here, and you could see the Rockers on the uprise, which is cool, and it was cool to see all this talent together. You'll never see something like this ever again. I mean, just my opinion, I don't think the tag team division will ever be as strong as it was. I mean, if it will be, it's going to take a long time for that to happen. Just in wrestling in general, I don't think tag team wrestling is as good as it could be, but things can change. I hope they do for the better. Another cool part here was all the managers involved. Slick, Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart, Fuji. I mean, geez, they're all together there. And the best part was the announcing, too. Like, Gorilla and Jesse, they were just in their prime. They're on their mark. You don't get that a lot today. Like, where the announcers actually have some personalities and are not, like, robots or controlled by someone in the back telling them what to say or what to do. I'm sure there's some cues and stuff back then with Gorilla and these guys, but I don't know. Today, it's too commercialized. Another funny part about this match was the heel character of Tully Blanchard. There was a point in the match where he gets tagged in and the Barbarians are waiting for him. He's like, no thank you, and tags in Nikolai Volkov, which I thought was pretty cool. Overall, just a great match to watch. Very entertaining. I think it's probably the best match on the card, without a doubt. I think it's definitely the show stealer. The ending, I don't know. I don't think the Demolition face turn was necessary. I think just a showdown between them and the Powers of Pain for a good 10 minutes would have been cool. And then they could have did like a double DQ or something just like that to end it. I think that would have been better than the face turn, because really when you're watching the video, I don't know how much is edited in or out, but the crowd just wasn't feeling it. I think they were a little bit confused. I don't think they really felt like Demolition was the faces. They probably thought Mr. Fuji turned face just by the looks of it, because they were still cheering for the Powers of Pain. You can see them walk in the locker room, everybody's like slapping their hands, so take that for what it's worth. But it's a great match. Can't take that away from it. The next match was a little bit wishy-washy. Andre the Giant, Rick Rude, Bravo, Perfect, and Harley Race, with their managers Frenchie Martin, who was another character. He's funny to watch too, and Bobby Heenan against Hacksaw, Jake Roberts, Scott Casey, Ken Patera, and Tito Santana. Those who didn't know, it was supposed to be Junkyard Dog. That was on this team, but he left the company by this time. He was replaced by Brian Blair, who also left the company shortly thereafter, so Scott Casey filled in. Just if you need sources, check out the WWE magazine, or WWF at the time, from 1988 in October. I believe that'll tell you September, October. I can, if anyone has concerns over this, which I'm sure they don't, message me and I'll provide the magazine. Also on the case of the show, it still had Brian Blair as the uh, team member with Jake the Snake, and I'm sure it was produced before he left. So, but overall, this was a cool. It was okay match. I'm a little picky about Survivor Series matches sometimes, just because I don't like quick matches at all. I hate that. This was 30 minutes. This was good enough. I just didn't like how Jake the Snake was left there for a good 15 minutes. You got you wanted to see Jake the Snake. I mean, overall, is just a fan's perception. Just seeing the character in Survivor Series. He was always kind of like the underdog. He's always kind of left for dead in some of these matches. I know in '90 he was against fighting the odds against four guys again. So he was always kind of left high and dry in Survivor Series. But this was a good match. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I would rather have him and maybe Hacksaw wrestling longer than they did together, or something like that, where he just wasn't left alone, because it kind of gets just monotonous. They're just beating the shit out of him for 15 minutes, and you're just all right, well, whatever's going to happen happens. But I love the bad guys because they were so good at their roles. Dino Bravo, he's just annoying, and it's so much fun to watch him. Same with Mr. Perfect and Rick Rude. They're just in their prime for what they did. Overall, I could rate it probably a 7 out of 10, just from a fan perspective. It wasn't bad, it wasn't the best. Ken Patera was on the way out, too. This was his last Survivor Series show, as well as the Bulldogs as well. I forgot to mention that. That was their last pay-per-view with the company, actually. Because that was right after their fist fight with the Rougeos, or Jacques and the Dynamite Kid. This was an okay match, wasn't bad. Nothing too spectacular. The main event was pretty cool, almost 30 minutes long. It was Hogan and Savage with their Mega Powers gimmick, teaming with Hercules, Coco Beware, and Hillbilly Jim with Elizabeth. They defeated the Twin Towers, Ted DiBiase, Haku, and Rooster. Never understood the Red Rooster thing. He just didn't fit in that gimmick. I don't think that was a good idea. He just couldn't pull off the bad guy persona to the degree it should have been. Maybe this wasn't a bad match. It was pretty good. I would give it probably a 9 out of 10. Definitely, I mean, it wasn't like you were going to get catch-as-catch-can wrestling, but it was entertaining enough and good enough to keep you interested, and kept you interested in the storyline of Hogan and Savage and their fight against the Twin Towers. Ted DiBiase was good in this match, too. I liked what, his just overall, I guess you could say, the way he just presented himself, and he was still feuding with Hercules at the time as well. It was just an enjoyable match. This show overall, this is really tough for me, because to compare this to Starrcade, it's like comparing Coke to Pepsi. It's like comparing different types of chicken or something like that, or comparing two different brands, because it depends what you really like. If you like NBC or you like ABC, there's reasons why you like these networks. If you like a certain football team compared to another one. So it's tough. If you like, the best way I can say this is, if you're a child and you like to be entertained and you like fun characters, then this is the show for you. If you're more of an adult and you like technical wrestling, then the NWA Starrcade would have been for you. I remember as being younger, watching WCW, it was a little bit boring, I think, because they were just more mat-based and more based on athletic competition, which not that WWF wasn't, but it wasn't like the main focus. More the characters, the personas, the personalities, the entertainment aspect of it. The production-wise, Survivor Series blows Starrcade out of the park. It just, Starrcade was basically a ring in an arena. WWF had more of the lights, the music, the excitement you could just see. I mean, Starrcade had excitement too, but just the overall production was just better with WWF. I'll just talk real quickly here. Well, I won't talk quickly about it, but Starrcade 88 True Grit. I really enjoyed this show. I think it's excellent. Kevin Sullivan and Steve Williams wrestled the Fantastics, which I thought was a good match. It wasn't anything to get really excited about, but it was decent. Not bad. 8 out of 10. Midnight Express against the original Midnight Express, the Battle of the Midnight Expresses. Great match. I really enjoyed it. I loved how Jim Cornette was harassing Paulie Dangerously back and forth. Good. You could see the managers brought something to the table. Dangerously brought the original Midnight Express from the AWA. from that promotion over to feud with these guys, storyline wise. And Jim Cornette's like, hey, you're in our house, I'm going to kick your ass. It was just good. Good match. And there was supposed to be more with that, but of course, with a lot of the NWA things in WCW, it fell through. The Russians against Junkyard Dog and Ivan Koloff. An okay match. It really wasn't very long. It was more of a storyline situation where Ivan Koloff, Paul Jones turned on him, and he's just trying to get his revenge against the Assassins, but they got the best of them. Rick Steiner and Mike Rotundo definitely delivered. Great match, great wrestling, very entertaining. I really enjoyed that one. Here's another interesting thing, too. Both JYD and Bam Bam Bigelow were at WrestleMania 4 and Starrcade, so they made a good payoff on both shows, so that's not too bad for 1988 for them. Good year. Barry Windham wrestled Bam Bam Bigelow, which I thought was a good match. Definitely 9 out of 10. Pretty enjoyable. Sting and Rose against the Road Warriors. I liked it, but too short. Should have been longer than it was. The storyline, the Road Warriors turn on Dusty, and Sting comes to the aid of Dusty, and they're going to feud. But I didn't like how the match turned out. I thought it could have been better. And then the main event I really enjoyed as well. It's probably the favorite match, I think, on the card for me, besides Steiner and Rotundo and the Midnight Express. I mean, they're all so good in their own way. It's hard to really narrow it down, but those are my 3 top matches on this card. Flair wrestled Luger. He was with J.J. Dillon. Great match. Good to watch. You could see Flair trying to make Lex Luger a star. He did the same thing with Sting earlier on that year. Just a great match. It was a good ending. It was fun to see that. You always see the bad guy get that victory, and Flair always gets away with it, Luger's leg gave that on him, and that's how, Flair took advantage and won the match. But overall, this is a great card. There's also Bunkhouse Stampede Battle Royal, won by Junkyard Dog beforehand, but this was like a dark match, wasn't shown on the air. Really wish it was. I love those Bunkhouse Stampedes. That was a great concept. Overall, it's really tough. It's apples and oranges, Pepsi and Cola. To compare both of these pay-per-views, it just depends what you like. If you like the mat wrestling, if you like the athletic competition, and the NWA was cool for what it was, and they didn't have to prove themselves to anyone. So you like pro wrestling, watch the NWA. You like entertainment, watch the WWF. So they're both good in their own ways. From a production standpoint, WWF has it over in the NWA at this time. But, things were going to change, too, because this is when Turner bought the company. So he's going to start putting some Turner money into it, which led to a little bit better production. They were talking about on one of the DVDs, Michael Hayes said they had like $1 million, production look, but that was my thing with WCW. It always looked a little bit junky. Not to offend anybody, but it just didn't look right. I remember the WCW sign they would have on the rampway would always look crooked. Things like that. It just, you got to be good with what you do and how you present your product, and things like that just doesn't look right. But that's a whole other argument and story for another day. But overall, like I said, it just depends what you're looking for in a wrestling show. If you like athletic competition and the kick-ass of the NWA, then watch that. But if you like the entertainment, the fun characters and all that, watch WWF. For me, this is tough. I am an NWA fan more than a WWF fan. At the time, though, it's really hard to, go. Both companies put on awesome products. So for me, this being the first under the Turner, ownership, I think was a great show. If I would have to compare one to the other, I really think Starrcade would have to win, and here's why. The only matches I really thought that were awesome, on this card, they're all good in their own way, but I think the top 3 ones are the Midnight Express match, Rick Steiner and Rotundo, and Flair and Luger. That's the main event. That was excellent. But I'm more of a mat wrestling kind of guy. I like more of the athletic competition, the idea that wrestling over characters is more important and stuff like that, which character development and all those things are important too. Not like it doesn't exist. I'm just saying that I just like the more technical, let's get down to wrestling kind of show. So for me, that wins it. But entertainment-wise, WWF has it over them. But the only really great match I saw was this tag team situation, the 10 versus 10 match. The other ones were okay, but this could have been better. And some of the matchups themselves, I think the teams could have been a little bit better with the Andre and versus Jake's team, and same thing with the Warriors team against the Honky Tonk Man's team. They could have maybe changed some things around, made it a little bit better. But that's just for me. Overall, I think Starrcade wins. I don't really have the pay-per-view vibes. I'd have to do some research. I can always post that up later on, who prevailed. But one thing that was kind of tricky here was Super Clash. Now, not a lot of people are, I guess even would think about that because it's the two big companies, WWF and the NWA. But the AWA at the time was, we're getting close to life support here with this company. But a lot of great talent was on the rise here when I'm looking at this show. I mean, Jeff Jarrett's on here. I'm not saying he's like the coup de grace talent. I'm just saying you had, let me take a look here. Well, Rock and Roll Express was on there. They jumped ship for a little bit. You also had the Guerrero family, which was great wrestling. I really enjoyed watching them. That was probably one of my favorite matches on this card. It wasn't very long, but it was fun. Cactus Jack, of course, he's another rising star. So you could see that a lot of this, also Bad Company, I really like them. Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond would always have great tag team matches. Just watch some of their matches with the Rockers in the later, like I say, early 90s. I mean, the 1991 Royal Rumble match between those two, or the Orient Express and the Rockers at the time, was excellent. Great match. You could see Medusa was here. DDP was on this card. Wayne Bloom, who would team up with Mike Enos to be the Beverly Brothers. Not saying they were the greatest tag team of all time, but they're good wrestlers. This is definitely one of those shows that showcased a lot of the upcoming talent. And if the AWA was, it's one of the situations where they were just kind of fading out of the spotlight, but they still had enough talent there where they could pull this off to become this new, fresh company again. If they would have just revamped their product, and they had new stars, so that really wasn't the problem. It was just like revamping the look. The ring looked like something out of the 60s. They had to change a little bit, like with some of the other companies, WWF and the NWA. They were updating, becoming more modern, more hip. If the NWA would have done that, I think that definitely would have helped. And probably, I mean, they were on ESPN. If they just would upgrade their look and change some things around, I'm sure within a year's time it would have helped. I mean, to continue where they were continuing, it was definitely a downward spiral. Main event was good, too. Jerry Lawler against Kerry Von Erich. Once again, Kerry Von Erich, big star from Texas, and Jerry Lawler, big star from Memphis. So they had the star power here. I'll go through the matches. First match was Chavo Guerrero, Mondo, and Hector, all the Guerrero family, against Cactus Jack and Rock and Roll RPMs. Okay, I liked the match. I thought it was a little too quick, but the Guerreros were very entertaining with their Lucha Libre style. I enjoyed it. Eric Embry and Jeff Jarrett, it was okay. Nothing exciting. Wayne Bloom and Jimmy Valley was over in a blink of an eye. So really nothing to really comment about that. King Parsons against, Iceman King Parsons against Brickhouse Brown. Wasn't bad, but once again, a lot of these matches are too short. The Top Guns, Ricky Rice and Derek Dukes, two guys that never really got a break. And Wendy Richter, they defeated Bad Company with Medusa. It's a six-man tag match, mixed six-man tag, too short. Greg Valentine against Greg Gagne against Ron Garvin. Greg defeated Ronnie Garvin by count-out, just too short. I remember watching that match thinking, it could have lasted longer. The Syrian Terrorists, this is the Battle Royal one. That's forgettable at best. Sergeant Slaughter and Colonel DeBeer's boot camp match was okay. Well, it was what it was. The SST, too. This is another thing. The Samoans, at the time, they were starting to get more notoriety. They were from Texas. Well, not they're from Texas, but at the time they were wrestling in Texas. They were managed by Buddy Roberts, defeated Michael Hayes and Steve Cox. So this was a good match. I liked it. Once again, a little too quick, but it was cool to see Michael Hayes kind of take Steve Cox under his wing and be like the mentor and the protege, taking on the former Freebird Buddy Roberts at the time and the Samoan SWAT team. Wahoo McDaniel, Manny Fernandez, always a good match, but a little bit too quick for my liking. Main event was great. Loved the match. It was like one of those things where it was like the AWA belt against the WCWA belt. and it was like that unification type of match. But the way they ended it, they wanted, it's like one of those things where promoters are going to go back and forth. Who's their stronger guy? Who's going to come on top? Things like that. So they kind of had to stop the match because Kerry Von Erich was bleeding. That's how they did the finish, and that's how they unified everything. And then the Rock and Roll Express fought the Studs Table. I don't really remember this match, so I'm not sure if it was on the show I watched, like the DVD version or not. I have to go back, so I don't really have an opinion on it just because I didn't see it. But from what it says here, once again, too short. Most of these matches are too short. So, and that can accredit to the fan looking at buying this show and saying this really sucked. I mean, I wouldn't blame them at the time. A lot of great talent on the rising, but look at the match quality and length. It's not there. Here's how this all plays out. So you can see that the WWF, they took over the Thanksgiving slot, kind of bumped or bored their way out, the NWA. So the NWA decided to go with another time period, decided December. But here's what happens. The Super Clash happens before Starrcade. So, maybe some of the fans that thought, hey, I'm going to buy Starrcade, decide, hey, I'll check out the AWA. Vice versa. So that affects everything here, pay-per-view buy-wise. So, I mean, this didn't help the NWA, but I don't think it hurt it as bad as some people would think. So I think the NWA probably did well. I like to get the numbers. I'll check that out and post them. If I can find it, if I can find the data. Just my opinion, I don't think, by the looks of this card, and by the, I guess you say the outcomes, if I bought the show, I would be pissed, because it just didn't seem like it was that great of a show. But if I would have bought Starrcade, I definitely would have been pleased. So, I mean, I think the diehard fans are going to buy what they're going to buy. But the casual ones, they could be persuaded. So, maybe some Super Clash fans went to the NWA, vice versa. But I don't think it hurt it as bad as Survivor Series probably did the year before. So, but competition's fun. Competition's healthy. The Super Clash definitely loses out on this war. I mean, for sure. But that's how history was kind of written out at the time. The NWA was on the way out. So for me, the NWA wins overall just because it's the product that I like. It's the quality I like. It's the type of style of wrestling I like. It's the the wrestlers and stars I like. So, I mean, to me, it was almost a no-brainer to a degree. From the mat from being a mat type of wrestling fan, from being a athletic competition style of fan, that's what I like. That's my thing. That's my cup of tea. So to me, the NWA wins. But it was a tough decision for me just on the fact that I did like WWF at the time here because they were putting on quality shows. Just with Survivor Series here, there's a decent length in the matches. I just think some of the wrestlers that were involved in them and how they were used could have been a little bit better. So to me, that's how I just perceived it. But, I mean, other people could think differently. Maybe some AWA fans thought their show won out. I mean, it's really a hard argument because it just depends what you like. But from my eyes, the quality of a match and the quality of a show beats quantity. So you can have 20 matches, but if they all suck, it doesn't mean anything. But if you have a show that has maybe 5 matches, but they're excellent, well, that wins out. So the consumers, it's tricky with wrestling. Nothing's ever set in stone. You could have one great pay-per-view one time, then the other one could suck. It just depends on opinion and depends on how things kind of play out. But overall, I think this war will, how can I phrase this? The war wasn't over yet. It was just beginning, really. And this was kind of like the seeds of it, the Survivor Series Starrcade feud. And some of the AWA still in there as well, trying to cling on to, the fan base it had left, which wasn't much at the time. But for me, Starrcade wins. Starrcade was the overall winner. Wrestling-wise, from my perspective as a fan, they did it better. But Survivor Series was definitely very close second, in my opinion. And then Super Clash nowhere near either one of them. The only saving grace of Super Clash really was the Von Erich, Jerry Lawler match. That's about it, to be honest. But we will do this again next year. We will do Survivor Series versus Starrcade 1989, which, boy, I tell you, it's another one. It's tough. It's tough to judge these matches, and it's tough to not be biased because to me, I'm an NWA guy, so it's hard not to want the NWA to always win, you know. So, but it's fun, and I hope you got to enjoy this show. I hope you listened to it. Really hope you listened to it. Please listen to more. Got a ton of them, and you know, if you want to make some comments or you know if you have questions, please feel free to you know post it on our Facebook page, the New School Republic Pro Wrestling Podcast group, or the New School Republic Pro Wrestling you know page. You can talk about on there. We're on YouTube. We're also on YouTube. We have tons of shows. I mean, honestly, we're the only group that has so many shows compared to some other podcasts. So check them out. Also, we're going to do our 100th anniversary show, 100th episode. We're going to probably do a 6-hour show. We're going to have special guests. We're going to talk about a lot of things. So that'll be coming up. And also our wrestling figure podcast. That'll be coming up soon, too. And that'll be an event. That'll be probably an 8-parter. It's going to be tricky because there's a lot of history there. So thank you once again for joining me. Hopefully we'll have some of the other guys back on our next show. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving or enjoyed it, depending if it's over for you or not. And we'll see you next time. So thank you for listening. And we'll see you next year at this time for this specific podcast. We'll have Starrcade versus Survivor Series 1989. Thanks again and happy Thanksgiving.